Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Anouska Lancaster. Anouska is a renowned interior designer and media personality, known for her bold, vibrant and fearless design approach. With a career that continually includes numerous high-profile projects, Anouska has made a name for herself in the world of interiors, blending creativity with functionality to transform spaces into works of art. Where does she get her inspiration and formidable and relentless energy and drive from? Anouska's journey has not always been easy, and I feel particularly humbled that she's chosen the safe space of our conversation to share key parts of her life that have been very difficult, and she continues to mentally tackle daily her own imposter syndrome. I'm very much looking forward to talking with Anouska, so let's get into it. Anouska, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I've been looking forward to this.
Me too, actually. I feel really honoured to be here today.
Well, tell me, who is Anouska Lancaster?
I am an award-winning interior designer, home stylist, home journalist, TV presenter, and I'm a patron of an incredible charity called Kaleidoscopic.
I'm looking forward to finding out more about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about young Anouska, the early influences, who and what kind of made your decision-making for career and for life?
I think art, really. I was really driven by art as a young child. I would just kind of sit alone doodling. I wanted to be an illustrator. I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was about 6. And my parents got divorced when I was young, but actually my art and that escape was really important to me. So art has been something that's really influenced me my whole life, and lovely that I've kind of come full circle now that I'm in a really artistic, creative career.
And going from enjoying it at school and maybe sort of doing all sorts of creative stuff at home, when did that sort of become something you could sort of focus on as a profession, as a career?
Well, I did A-level art and did incredibly well at that, sort of getting my A star, and then I decided to go and travel for a couple of years. And then in that time, I met my ex-husband, so kind of there was this shut-off time in my life where suddenly everything stopped, and kind of all that creativity was all put on hold, really, because I got married very young. I got engaged at 21, married at 22, had children at 23.
Career, right?
Yeah, and I had these dreams for this massive career as an artist, and that's all I dreamt about as a child. And suddenly, like this gate shut on me. When I got married, I hadn't realised how controlling he was, but he made me not work. The job that I was doing at the time, I was actually cabin crew at the time, travelling around the world. He put a stop to that very quickly. And at the time, I thought it was like love bombing. I was like, oh, he doesn't want me to work because he just wants me to be with him. He wants to be with me. But actually, it evolved
Was it gradual? Was it almost like a kind of a net coming around you? You started to realise you were basically being trapped.
Yeah, totally. I lived almost like a prisoner's life in this marriage while he continued to live his life to his dreams. He continued to do whatever he wanted. And I had met him and got married and had children so quickly that my life had just kind of not ended, because my kids are my most important thing in my life, but my dreams just ended very, very quickly. Because
that's stifling your creativity, right? Your aspirations. And I think I'm very conscious I think the first time you've talked about this publicly, and I feel very honoured this is a safe space for you to be able to do that. But there's probably a lot of people at the time and through that journey you were going through that thought you had a privileged lifestyle. You've got the big house, you can ride your horse whenever you want, and isn't she beautiful and got money and so on? Actually, you were miserable.
Really miserable. And I think, from an outsider's point of view, I would turn up at private school, my kids would hop out the Range Rover, I'd be in my riding gear, going to the stables, but I was living this utterly miserable life of fear and very, very lonely. I think people think you're in a marriage, you've got this great partnership, but he was living a life in Soho. I was living a single mum life, basically, with 2 children, out in the countryside in the middle of nowhere. We did have a beautiful house, we had a pool, I had the horse, I had the clothes, I had the bags, but I was utterly miserable. And I lived in fear, solid fear. I never knew what mood he'd be in when he came home.
So there was physical abuse?
Physical abuse, emotional abuse. It was very much like being a prisoner. So I was cut off from my friends, my career. The only place that I was allowed to go was the stables. So he bought me a horse so that I was just in riding clothes every day. My riding instructor was gay, so there was no threat there.
Seriously controlling.
Seriously
And
controlling.
he's created an environment that you should be happy in, and she's fine, and I can carry on with my other stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was awful, and I was only allowed to ride my horse Monday to Friday between the hours of school, so 9 till 3. And then my job was to be a mum to our kids, which obviously I loved, but I wasn't allowed out to see my friends. Slowly he pushed my friends and family away from me. So it was a really, really lonely existence.
And they're the people you would talk to, right?
Yeah.
And this is where I think from a conversational point of view, this is Anouska's life, but there are people potentially watching and listening that go, that's me.
Yeah.
And how did you what steps did you take to get out? Because those people, the friends and family, they would be there for you when you choose to talk to them. Did they support you as you tried to escape?
I think a couple of them could see it. My best friend knew everything about it and was my greatest support. So when I could see her, she really supported me. And in the background, we both knew at some stage I was going to have to get out of this. To other people, I was quite scared to tell them the truth, because the wives of the couples at school, some of the dads knew him. And it's not always physical abuse where you're grabbed and you're punched. It would be picking up things and throwing them at me. He thought in the end that I turned my gay riding instructor straight. He was convinced that we were having an affair. I wasn't allowed to use my mobile phone at home. If I wanted to send a text, I would lock myself in the bathroom to send a text. And often he would bang on the door or break the door down because he suspected that I was having an affair or trying to get help. But then on the flip side of that, he was also cheating on me continually and quite blatantly cheating on me as well. So if I ever went to London to meet him on the rare occasion I was invited to one of the nightclubs, women would throw drinks over me, accuse me of having an affair with their man. I would find notes in his pocket from women talking about last night. There'd be lipstick all over his shirt, hotel room keys in his pockets when I did the washing. So while all this is going on, my confidence levels are diminishing because I lost all confidence in myself. And I was only young, I was in my 20s. And that massively affected me as well. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on at the time.
This is, and it's huge abuse. And as you say, living in fear with the genuine threat to your life.
Yeah.
And by the sound of it, your own children, his children.
Yeah, his children. But then what would happen is when he got caught out, so when I would catch him cheating on me, he would then love bomb me with gifts and presents and promises of rehab and change. I remember one day this extravagant apology where he turned up at the school in a horse box covered in pink balloons. And that was a way of showing all the parents what an amazing husband he was. And they were like, wow, he's so amazing. Look what he's done for you. He's bought your horse a horse box. You know, so it was such an extreme. I was on this roller coaster of living in fear, never knowing if he was going to come home, and if he was going to come home, what state he'd be in. So he was in this paranoid state continually about, and guilt, I think, of what he was doing. And then his only outlet was me. Yeah,
you've articulated that really well. I sighed when you said about the fact that he was having all his affairs and doing it in broad daylight, if you like, because that hypocrisy that he's living with, and actually you were doing the exact opposite. One, because you couldn't, and two, because you wouldn't.
No.
You know, but he's not going to see that, right? How did you escape? Because you were that's unbelievable what you were going through. How are you sitting here now, thriving and flourishing?
It took 2 attempts. The first attempt, I tried to get away in 2007. He threw me down the stairs holding my little girl, and I crawled to the phone and I rang the police, and he was threatening me as I picked up the phone, and something in me made me ring 999. The police arrived. It took 4 of them to get him into the back of the van. The police were amazing. They were lovely to me, and it was the police officer that said to me, you have to press charges because he did this to his ex-wife. Now, I didn't know he'd been married before, but we were living in the same county at the time that he'd been married before. Of
So he
course,
kept that hidden from you?
He kept that hidden from me. And she'd got away. I'd never heard anything about this woman. So obviously that sparked interest. I tried to get away. Once I got away, in terms of, he promised me that he would go to rehab. You can stay in the house. I'm going to change. And that went on for about 2 months. In that time, I tried to get a divorce, went to solicitors. I got help from my dad at the time. And basically, I was in this really weak position because the house was owned by his parents. I had no money. You know, there was nothing I could do. So one day, and in that time, I also found out he'd been cheating on me with a friend of mine, which was double the hurt, and a load of others. Because what happens is when you go on your own, everyone comes out the woodwork. So because they thought I'd left, everyone was telling me everything. So that
so
was
much
worse.
you wouldn't have known as well, right?
I
So
wouldn't have
much,
known.
because you were living in a trapped environment.
Yeah, totally. But I tried to get away and I couldn't. And one day he just said, I've had enough of this. And he just came back into the house and said, I'm back. And I rang the police and said, and they said, there's nothing, it's his house, it's his parents' house, there's nothing you can do. So from that time, I knew I had to get out. The control got worse, because obviously he'd had a scare. I'd nearly got away this time. So the control got worse. All the promises he made me to get help, he didn't do. You know, that kind of slowly, within a few weeks, things went back to normal. But it got worse because that's when we moved to this big house in the middle of nowhere. And that's, you know, my school run was 40 minutes drive every day. Couldn't see any friends. There was no one around. He slowly started pushing my mum away from me, who had been close to me before that. But in that time, a little bit like Sleeping with the Enemy, the movie, I knew the bigger picture. I knew the plan. I knew what I had to do. So when I got back with him, I said, the only way that this is going to work is that you have to show me respect and put the house in my name with you. And that was an agreement for me to try and make things work. So we did that. I siphoned off money for 2 years. I was every month putting money aside, knowing the plan. And then one night he called me from Soho to say goodnight. I was like, right, this is my time. This is my time. I know he's in Soho. I know he's an hour and a half away. I've got time. Rung my best friend. We got the kids in the car. I got away. But the next morning he was waiting for me at the hotel because there was a tracker on my car, which I hadn't realised at the time. So that's when the post-separation abuse begun, and that is a lot worse. And one of the reasons that I joined Kaleidoscopic as a patron was that I really want to raise awareness on post-separation abuse, because people think that once you leave your abusive partner, it's all sunshine and roses. And actually, that's the most dangerous time for someone who's involved with someone in domestic abuse. Yeah, that was the start. I got a non-molestation order the next day from the court, which protected me, but he had no respect for this order. And what happened is I would have like farmers coming across the fields at night. I'd have people banging on my doors. Because I was in the middle of nowhere, I felt really scared. So I made the decision with my dad to move into rented accommodation with the kids, a really tiny, tiny cottage right next to the school, where my friends were, where the school was, where I could walk my kids to school.
Got a safety element there as well, right? You're middle of nowhere to actually being around people road. And visible.
Yeah, and I'd saved up this money, so I had enough money in the bank to be able to do that. The non-molestation order got amended that he couldn't come on that road, but that didn't stop the doorman from the clubs in London. I mean, I had everyone at my house. My windows would be smashed at night. I'd have people banging on my door. I'd have vans and lorries blocking my drive so I couldn't get out. The police took it very seriously. They basically put me at that highest threat level. They installed it's like a blue box in my house, which meant that when I pressed the alarm, I was higher than a 999 call. So they took it really seriously. They put me at like Marek level with Thames Valley Police. But however many alarms you've got, you can't sleep, you know.
Right. You're living in fear for so long.
Yeah.
And one thing, it's almost like the narcissistic behaviour, you could call it, that's gone into you and smashed your confidence to pieces.
Yeah.
Disturbed sleep, you know, probably always looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, what coping mechanisms have you built for yourself to come out of that? You know, do you still have, you know, moments of flashbacks, trauma and so on that you have to cope with from this?
Yeah, I do. I think at the time I just buried it. I just went into looking after my kids. It was a massive change for my children, bearing in mind they had come from this 9-bedroom house with a pool, you know, all their stuff. My daughter had a pony in the garden, you know, a dog.
Sounds idyllic. It's
mad.
Idyllic. It's like sleeping with the enemy. It's like from the outside, people would have thought that Anouska had the perfect life, and yet actually you were absolutely in turmoil.
And funnily enough, like my biggest and my first ever job as an interior designer was to bridge that gap from my children being ripped out of their home in the middle of the night, one night, to living in this 3-4 bedroom cottage on a main road, you know, like with no explanation, because they didn't really understand. They were 4 and 7, didn't really understand. They knew daddy wasn't there, but they, you know, I'd hidden a lot from them. So my first job was to make this home for them so amazing that they actually loved the transition. And interestingly enough, my daughter had massive sleep problems, health problems. My son had an eating disorder. And as soon as we moved into this cottage, stopped. My daughter slept. My son started eating.
Wow.
So there's a lot to say for like a feeling. I think they felt safe. And that's when I knew that I'd done the right thing.
They'd have been feeding off their mum as well, right?
Yeah.
You would have been, as much as you concealed it and tried to hide it, they would have felt something, and that anxiety
is massive.
would have been huge. And there's no way the kids are so intuitive, right?
Yeah, and we're so close because he was never there. It was always like the three of us, the 3 musketeers. We were always super close, and if I was happy, they were happy. So we were living in this cottage. They were going to school. Things got progressively worse. Not just the abuse, but the financial abuse. So he got my car repossessed. It was on finance. Obviously, any credit card, everything was stopped. Maintenance was stopped. So it was that financial control. I was literally living off my savings. I got a great solicitor who managed to force him, because at the time he was living this very lavish lifestyle and it wasn't hidden at all, so he had to pay maintenance. But the control got worse and worse, and I couldn't afford solicitors. He used the courts as another way of abusing me. So I started representing myself in court because I could only afford a few months of being supported by solicitors. So that was also a massive strain on me.
Is that something that's needed with kaleidoscopic and so on? You were able to plan ahead by siphoning money and knowing you had a protection. There's many women in your position potentially that wouldn't be able to afford that. Is that something that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, legal aid. There's so many loopholes with that. There's not enough support out of there for women who are in danger or need help. And actually one of the coping mechanisms that you just mentioned was that one bit of control that I had was supporting myself in court. And I channeled all the fear, all the anxiety, everything I had into walking into that courtroom, and kind of turned it into anger almost, because he would come in with the top barristers from London. He was paying them like £3,000 a day to rip me apart. But I knew my case, I knew every date, I knew every incident. I could quote anything from any police report. So I was powerful when I went in there. And it was like that kind of legally blonde moment.
That's your confidence coming back as well, right?
Yeah.
Which has been smashed to pieces, but actually, you're handling yourself, you're representing yourself.
It was amazing, actually. That really helped me, because before the court case, each time there would be all the barristers gather. And obviously I didn't have one. So I would have to meet face to face with his barrister. And I would sit there with my paperwork and question the barrister on what he was going to say. And he didn't know the history of the case. So that really helped me. And because of the seriousnesses of the offences, we got moved to a circuit judge. And then when you get to that level, you have the same judge every time who got to know me. So I would walk in and he would say, you know, he allowed me to use my maiden name. Hi, Miss Lancaster, you know, welcome. He knew, he could see exactly what's going on. Obviously you had to go through procedures, but he could see through it. And I had support of like CAFCAS, social services, all these people, Thames Valley Police. So I had support from, in the background. Obviously they couldn't help me, but
comforting to know you had that though, because at certain points you'd been so on your own, so isolated, to then start to believe in yourself again and know, and clearly all the way through this you knew everything that was happening to you was wrong. I'm very conscious that you haven't talked about this before, and it must be taking you back to it.
Yeah.
And I want to actually pull you out of it, because what I picked up on is, dare I say, you probably wouldn't have the inspiration, the drive for what you do now, without, almost like a sort of a cork in a bottle. From 21, all that creativity, all that ambition, and then just trapped to now firing and, you know, QVC and all these things that you're doing.
Yeah.
But also consciously we almost sort of need to kind of come out of this period of, you know, post-separation and stuff. So then I want to really engage that whole kind of, how did you then restart the career to flourish and to be doing all the things you're doing now?
Well, as I mentioned, the first job I did was to redesign this cottage.
Which is really personal, right?
Which is really personal, and I had to contact the landlord and say, can I do this? Because obviously a normal landlord wouldn't allow someone to redecorate the house. And he did. And I just put my stamp all over it. It was like this box of creativity had been like locked up for years, and I just went for it. And just everything that was joyful, everything that was, I said to my kids, like, what do you want? Like anything you want. And
so you got them involved?
Yeah, and they were like, we want a disco in the house. And I was thinking, oh gosh, I've already got like 3 rooms.
Shouldn't have asked.
You know, and I remember going to like Poundland, and I bought this like disco ball, you know, and I put it on the dining table. And I turned it on, and like these like lights were going around the room, and I turned the music up, and the kids just thought this was like the best. Mummy, this is the best house ever. And
they just moved from a 9-bedroom house. It sounds like most, but this was life. This is living. This is your creativity.
And that's when they started to flourish. I mean, there were loads of setbacks because we were living in this safe place, and then I tried to buy this house as my divorce settlement because this was the safe place. And of course, he reneged on that. We did the deal, wouldn't give me the money, had to keep going back. We went back to court for years. And that's when I met my current husband, Greg. And I mean, gosh, if it wasn't for Greg, I wouldn't be sat here now. He gave me the confidence to set up my business. He kept calm. He was like the anchor in the storm for me. Yeah, I mean, he ended up having to come into police protection with me. We had security at our wedding. We didn't announce the venue, anything, until literally a few days before. And that was not the end, because that was my statement back. That was our statement back, is that we're not scared. And that was kind of when the new chapter for the two of us started.
And for context of anyone watching and listening, we're 2024 now, October. When was this?
That was 2015.
Right.
Beginning of 2015, 17th of January. And we got married.
My heart's racing from just this conversation.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm not crying.
No, you've done
But you know what? Well. Like, I've cried every time I've talked about it. But today I feel like now is the time, because for some reason we're sat here. This has happened. I don't know how. Now is the time, because if there's anyone sat at home who's living in this, I'm giving hope.
You are giving hope. And the fact that you're part of Kaleidoscopic, and the fact that you can share and details that some people would find uncomfortable, but they're your lived experience.
Yeah.
And there's probably so much more you could talk about. But, and thank you again, because I know that's been really hard for you to go through. But anyone watching, listening, and me myself as well, I know you as QVC, I know all these incredible things. So in that 10-year period, if you like, you have really engaged your creativity.
Survived.
And do you think that drive and that creativity sort of spark, if you like, has come from the fact that you've obviously been through so much, built your resilience.
Yeah.
You've got so much to kind of give to that now. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think like I feel driven because I want to make up for time that I've lost. I feel like my designs, they're so colourful and so uplifting and so joyful that is what I want to give back.
That makes sense.
I lived in a house, not a home, for 10 years. I lived in fear for 10 years. And now I celebrate every morning when I wake up. I'm alive, I survived. My house is colourful, it's joy. Like you can't not wake up in my bedroom and not be happy.
And this is in Cornwall.
It's in Cornwall.
Because you should let everyone know the Instagram link to it.
Yeah.
Because I follow you. Clearly, we're friends out of here, right? But ultimately, it's an absolute pleasure to see what comes up on your feed. You just take pictures of a scene with a chair, but it's an event. Yeah. There's so much going on, and you're right. It's popping colour. It's
colour, and it's hope, and it's freedom. I think is the biggest thing. I think my designs are a celebration is how I would describe them, of freedom. Like freedom is like the greatest gift that money can't buy. And it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what your budget is. And when I set up Anouska Design, I really wanted to get rid of that stigma that interior design was for the elite, was for the 5-star hotel look. It isn't. It is about embracing everything that is about you, your journey, your story, your passions, your love, and then throwing that out into your environment. Because I truly believe that if you're in an environment where you're happy and reflects you, it's life-changing. Like it's like when you wear an outfit. So when you wear an outfit that you look good. You feel different, don't you? You give off a vibe. But that you're comfortable in as well, which is really important. And I think that's what I do with my clients. Like we dig deep. I get to know all my clients on a like really personal level. We become friends, and then we pull out all the stuff. Like recently I worked with a divorced lady, and when I met her, she'd just kind of got the house in the settlement. She'd say like, I don't know what my style is. I don't know, because people lose themselves in that journey. And now she loves colour, she loves pattern. She's totally changed the way she sees life. She's totally changed the way she's dressed. She used to be all in neutral, and now I saw her the other day, she's in a pink coat with an orange bag. You've influenced that. It must be satisfying. Yeah. You've actually, and she was probably lost in her own way in new identity coming from a divorce. And then you've got the other side of the kind of character, if you like. We've got Amanda Holden, who does understand interior design, but trusts and wants to work with you to help her house pop and show. Well, that was such an honour, because I started working for her at QVC, and she loved everything I did, and she was always like a cheerleader for me on QVC. So when she asked me to help her with the house, that was again like a real honour as well, because she's super stylish, and we had great fun. And it is, and when you look at all my different clients, and they're all so different, you can really see them in their interior. And that's why I think Anouska Design is different, because it's totally bespoke. There's lots of designers out there where you look at their Instagram and they're all very beautiful, but there's definitely a pattern where they all look. It's a winning formula that you keep rolling out. Whereas one of my rules is that no interior ever looks the same, whether it's in my house, every room's different, or any client I do, even if they want a wallpaper that I've used already, I'll try because I want it to really reflect them. So my interiors are really about, joy, freedom, celebration, uplifting. And I think that is what's come from my past. And I think that's what's probably boosted me with the amount of press that I've had. And I've never gone into the history like I have with you, but I did do like a conference once, and the questions that were at the end were all about my past. And I think there's a lot of people out there who have got questions to ask and no one's talking about it. That's the relatability as well, isn't it? And actually that makes you authentic, it makes you real. You're not just doing it as a profession. It comes from within. And actually from really dark, troubled times comes light, comes freedom and sort of incredible colour, which you'd much rather not gone through all that, but it probably makes your creations really, really powerful, and people will feel that. Yeah, I think so. Is there almost like a sort of interior design role or job that you would just love, or is everything just taken at face value and it's a challenge, it's an opportunity? My wish list is to do a hotel. I would really love to do like a boutique hotel. And people contact me at Pinelli House on Instagram and say, can I come and stay? Or, you know, would you let out a room? So to be able to bring my style to a hotel and for someone to give me that kind of free reign, that would be the dream.
Maybe someone watching or listening.
Yeah,
That's a
that
cool,
would be
cool
amazing. Because, you know, I mean, I've got a holiday cottage in Cornwall. And that was a really fun project to do because, again, I felt like everyone lives this mundane life, you know, busy, 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 stress, stress, stress. When you're away, it should be a complete escape from reality. You know, there's bright tropical fish all over the living room and, you know, it's just really bright and fun. And when you're away, I think that should be your escape from reality. I did another project where it was all kind of like Alice in Wonderland themed and in a classy way. So yeah, it's creating an escape, I think, from reality and the stresses and everyday life, really, through interiors.
And linking that to Anouska, so all you've been through to now thriving and successful in what you do, what do you do to get away from the noise, to find your inspiration? So I can tell if I was a client, you connect with me at a level where then you get your stimulation and your inspiration. But you still then got to take that away, but like a writer, and formulate the words, put it all together. Where are you best creative and how do you make that time for yourself? Is it sort of riding? Is it going for a walk? You know, what works for you?
I mean, I was lucky enough to go back to riding a few years ago. Sadly, I've lost my horse now, but riding is amazing. I think it's just being out in the fresh air. Being in Cornwall for us, so we've now fully relocated to Cornwall as much as possible. I've got a lot of work in London and Surrey and Berkshire, but it's being near the sea. I think it's being that escape, and also this dream that Greg and I built that we talked about for so many years, and that's something that we really hung on to. To be there now is such a huge achievement for us.
Especially with the journey that you elaborated just a fraction of it. Yeah, no, I get that.
And we've both started our businesses from scratch, basically. I started Anouska Design when I was living in that cottage, working for free, trying to build up. I mean, I hustled so much because people don't take you seriously unless you've got a portfolio. Obviously, I didn't have any clients, so I had to go and work for free to get pictures. I would just go on the internet all day and just contact people trying to get a break. And equally, Greg was kind of in a place where his business wasn't growing. He was in a very comfortable space. And we both really encouraged each other with ambition and drive to really push. And we both push each other. And that's where we've got to now. I've gone from living in a rented cottage. He's gone from a one-bedroom flat to now living this life that we'd imagined.
Yeah, I love that. And there must be some immense satisfaction, if that's the right word, that you've come through your own journey from practically nothing to build your and a tribe around you as well of people that are supporting you and in some cases know a fraction of what you've been through, right? So then there's probably a lot of pride around a lot of people that they're proud of what you've done. And there's an element of you could call it success there, and a lot of people who will see you on QVC and Anouska Design and will see a very successful entrepreneur. Sitting here now, how would you describe success?
I think just happiness. You know, I'm lucky now. I've got to a place in my career where I don't have to be like emailing people for work. I can actually start picking and choosing the jobs that I want to do. I'd love to do more work in Cornwall, and I've kind of been prioritising that for my mental health, just because actually now that's my safe place. That's where I want to be. So this winter I've taken on 2 projects down there. Also doing more TV work, which is something that I'm really passionate about. And a journey that Greg shared with me was that we did the Renovation Nation programme on Channel 4, which was the 2 of us. And it was the first time that we'd actually worked together on anything, let alone television. And that was really fun. We're really like spark off each other. Like we're really good as a team. I'm the creative. I mean, he's actually really creative too, but he's kind of business minded and very calm, and he's really good for me actually, Because sometimes that anxiety comes in, it's always in the background, like that trauma.
Imposter syndrome almost.
I struggle with imposter syndrome, even being here today, literally walking
That's not
here.
your fault though.
No.
That's years of, that's constantly challenging yourself, am I good enough? What I love is the inner voice, which it takes so much controlling, and then Greg elevate that and just quash any voice. I mean, I imagine you have tough times with it, 100%, you're fighting it every day, right?
It's always there. It's always lurking, and if you let it get hold of you, it can win. I could have easily texted you and said, I can't do today. There were lots of times I thought about it and thought I can't do it. Walking here, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Bless you.
But actually, the fear that I felt at that time when I was in it and living in it, the turmoil, is nothing to anything that I could do on television or anything that's put in my way now. And I thought, if I can get through that...
I was going to say, you've come through far more than many people should ever have to. And you look fab. And it's in your eyes. It's an electricity. It's something that, dare I say, comes from just all the things you've been through, right? But you know why you're here. As Anouska, you're making all these things, amazing things happen with Greg. I'm conscious of time that anyone watching, listening, and kind of almost aspiring to be in your position, following your passion, and choosing the work that you do. What advice would you give to an aspiring interior designer that's coming into the beginning of their career in today's world?
I think what I've learned is just to follow your gut, like your intuition. If you're not happy, and whether it's in your relationship or whether it's in your career, it's never too late. And I write this a lot on my Instagram posts. It's never too late to change the next chapter. And I think age is something where people, I mean, even back then, I was 30, I was thinking, and my ex-husband was saying to me, you're too old, no one's going to look at you, you got 2 children. I look back and think, my gosh, I was 30, I was a baby. But even at 40, at 50.
That was him getting in your head though, right?
Yeah. At any age, you can change your career, you can change your circle. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it is worth the fight, because when you come out the other side and you look back, I used to drive to school when I was in that situation, and I used to look at the sun, and I remember every morning on the school run praying that somebody would help me. I need to get out of this. And I still think about that all the time. It's
part of your drive though, right? You reframe that. And again, anyone watching, listening that is thinking, well, I've got kids and I want to, you keep fit clearly. And you talk about the mental side of things that are important to you. Making time for all of that. How have you managed to juggle all the moving parts to be able to make all this? Are you flat out?
I was about to say, I don't know. I don't know. People go to me, how do you do it all? I don't honestly know.
You just do it.
You just do it. And I think that's always been the way, like even when I was living through the bad times, you just get up and you get on with it. And I think for my kids, I mean, if it wasn't for my children, I dread to think if I would even be here now, because there were days where I was so exhausted. I couldn't get up. I couldn't fight anymore. I could have gone back 100,000 times. Because it was the constant court cases, it was the constant police reports. I had police in my house every day. I was exhausted. And I think that wearing you down becomes a really dangerous place.
But that is not how we're going to end this conversation, because I totally get it. It's intrinsically entwined in who Anouska Lancaster is. What have you not done that you really want to do? Because you are spinning a lot of plates. There are so many things you've done, but if you could kind of do a North Star, which entwines your love of the media, the TV side of things, is that like a TV program you'd love to do? Renovating the hotel that you get the work for?
Gosh,
is there something that you just like, that's what I'd love to do?
I've got 2 ultimate. I'd say my first one is exactly that, like having my own TV show or working on a TV show.
You'd be great at that.
I'd love that. Actually, one idea that I did have that I haven't got anywhere with is that working with Kaleidoscopic, what I really want to do is transform women's refuges, because they are dire places. And I was lucky enough that I was fortunate enough that I had enough money to move into a rented house. But when women don't have anywhere to go and they're forced into a refuge, it can be a really awful place for them and their
children. Is it just
children.
a shell?
exactly that. And it's
So you could bring the hope,
you're
the
in
stimulation
I would love
freedom.
Like decorate it. I got sent some images actually from the charity about a project that I could help with, and you know, when you're in a dark place and then you have to go and live in somewhere like that,
Well, it's not probably far off prison in context of the bare walls and so on. If that's the
and
way of describing it.
donated furniture, donated
Hand-me-downs,
bedding, you know. So I would love to do a TV show where I could help women like me with their children find a safe space, but then decorate it to make it a really joyful space. That would be like my dream
That's
TV
awesome.
show. Like,
I think you've got to make that happen. We've got the chairman of ITV coming in to film after you, so let's try and make this happen. That's a proper mission-led goal.
I would love that.
Yeah, you'd be awesome at that as well. And in the nicest way, not to go back to it because I want to end on a high. But,
I've got one other dream. My other dream is to have my own brand. That's the ultimate, to have Anouska out there on the high street or on a website, whatever. So.
I wouldn't bet against you doing either of those. So.
Thank you.
Got to make it happen. But I know how busy you are, so thank you for making time and also for being so brave.
Thank you.
Like super brave. And I know from the messages we've exchanged and that this has been a whole. But I hope you've enjoyed talking with me.
I've loved it.
Yeah,
thank
and I've loved it too. And thank you, Anouska.
Thank you so much.